and I come from the printing and publishing business. And we started this program some time ago to allow people who are by, about, or from Queens and have written books about either themselves or about Queens on the program. We do 2 at a time. Today we have Lisa Chaneyfield and Mariah Fredericks. I'm very, very happy to introduce you to Lisa Chaneyfield, a product of the Rockaways. She lives now in Woodhaven. We just met a few moments ago. Got a very, very interesting story in her connection to God and to the church and everything. So, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, Lisa Chaneyfield. Lisa, good morning and welcome.
Good morning. Thank you for having me this morning.
Are you kidding? We love to have people.
I'm so excited.
No, it's great. And you know what? You have no stage fright. You don't look nervous at all. I get some people on this thing that just start humming. But you're a mom and you're a grandmom and you got it all together. I got to tell you, lady, you got it all together.
I sure hope so. I'm working at it. I'm working at it.
So welcome again. I want to make sure our guests are relaxed so they can go into their heart, into their head about what their novel was about, what their book was about. So Lisa, as we get started here, tell us a little bit about yourself and the reason that you wrote this book and write books in general.
Well, I'm originally from Rockaway, Queens. I'm 52 years old. I'm currently in Mercy College getting my degree in psychology. I'm a junior and I'm an elder in the church. I have a ministry for women where I minister to women, and I do a lot of outreach from shelters and for the homeless and those that are living on the street. You know, I like to reach out and I give them a little bit of my testimony because I too once was a person that was homeless. Actually, I slept in cardboard boxes. I slept on the trains, and my heart goes out to people like that because sometimes we're looked down on and people don't understand the struggle of a person or why they're homeless or why they go through what they're going through. And a lot of times they're stigmatized. So I I'm a firm believer in Christ, and I have compassion, and I like to reach out to those and show them that they're not unreachable. There's nothing that God can do that he cannot reach you where you at.
Tell me about the life and testimony of Lisa Chaneyfield, Volume 2. Is that a novel about yourself and your life and your religious experience? Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I wrote this book because I wanted to let people know that all things are possible with God. And me in writing this book, I want to inspire others. I have lived a life of being on a drug addiction. I had lived a life of being homeless, as I just explained, and being in abusive relationships and dealing with mental issues and health issues in prison. I mean, I've been through a lot of stuff, and I just wanted, because I know that there's others out there that may be going through the same thing, and just want to encourage them and give them hope.
I think that's a beautiful thing. You know what? I think it's really, really tough for people to talk about some of the trials and tribulations, and sometimes when they stumble. It's very easy to talk about, oh, I got this award and I got that award and I achieved this greatness or I achieved this opportunity, right? But that's easy to do. It's really hard to be an example for others who have stumbled and fall, if I may say that about you, right? You stumbled and you fall, but man, you're tough queens. You picked yourself up, you figured it out, and you're living a life now.
Yes. And that's what I would like for others to realize, that they don't have to stay where they are. There is always a light at the end of the tunnel. And sometimes we seem like there's no hope, but I wanted to reach out to people to let them know that there is still hope for them, because you can pick yourself up and get back on the right road. And I'm a living testimony to that.
I love that. I truly do. And you know what? There's also a great connotation, if I may say, to business. This is not a business program. This is about authors and so on. But you know what? I can tell you stories about so many people who struggle and fail in their businesses, and they never, ever give up. And that's a testimony to the message you're kind of giving out there. So when you write a book, like you've written this one book, The Life and Testimony, or multiple books?
No, I have 2 out, and I'm working on a 3rd book.
I love that. So tell me about it. You're a busy woman. You're a busy mom, grandma, in your church, dedicated your life to that kind of stuff. How do you find time to write? And in what manner do you write? Do you transcribe verbally? Do you talk into a microphone? Do you sit on a bench or in your house in a certain spot and just get motivated by writing? Tell us a little bit about that.
What I do, I find time because, like you said, I'm a busy person. I'm also in school,
Yes, right.
so very busy. So what I do before anything and foremost, I pray first. I
love
pray and I be led of the Holy Spirit, and I sit and I write, and as He gives it to me, I write.
I love it. And where do you do that mostly? You do that in your home? Do you go
In my home, in my kitchen,
Do you really?
at my kitchen table, yes,
And do you do it by hand or do you use a
by
laptop?
hand.
Do you
I do
really?
it by hand, and then once I have the manuscript, then I type it up. I do it all by hand.
Holy cow. So hopefully you must have some pretty good handwriting. Otherwise, you could miss a lot of stuff.
I can understand it, so when I type it up, yeah.
I'm the same way. I was taught growing up cursive by nuns. And so sometimes that kind of stuff is ingrained in your mind and in your head. And that's just the way you can read your own stuff, but nobody else can.
Yeah.
So the life and testimony of Lisa Chaneyfield, volume 1, I'm assuming. Now there's volume 2. What is your next novel all about? And what do you hope to accomplish with that?
But this next novel is going to be about breaking cycles, because sometimes we go through a lot of different cycles and we don't know how to break it. So
Tell us about that a little bit. Give us some more conversation.
So what I be talking about, like breaking cycles of other people's opinion about you and not letting what other people say define who you are, about, being in relationships, whether it's in a romantic relationship, friendship, and not letting people define you, and about changing the mindset that we have. So it's like breaking, like, so, we go through so many things, so many cycles that we continue to go through. And so it's really about breaking the cycles of opinions, of man, of ourselves and relationships, because sometimes we'll get out of relationships, we'll go to the next, how would you say, doing the same thing, expecting different results. But we don't, it's like a cycle. You keep going back and forth to the same thing and it's not working. So therefore it becomes a cycle.
Yeah, I hear you. And that's a great expression. I think that was the famous genius Albert Einstein. If you do the same thing over and over again and expect a different result, that's supposed to be the definition of insanity. Right?
Yeah.
But I get it, right? That comment makes sense, right? Breaking that cycle must be really tough. So what were some of the ways that you were able to break the cycle? Because God bless you, you detail in your overview a really, really difficult time, right? Broken hearts, betrayal, not being forgiven by certain people or certain situations. How did you do that, Lisa?
Actually, what I started doing, first of all, I separated myself, and I had to love myself. I had to forgive myself first for the things that I have done or allowed to be done to me. And I had to forgive the people that have done it. So, and I stayed by myself for a while to build myself up, because when dealing with people's opinions, that will break you down even more. So I had to separate myself and to learn to love me all over again, and not looking for love in the wrong places, but loving myself.
I love that. That's terrific. Now, when you said you're a student studying at Mercy, studying psychology, is that right?
Yes.
Now, what do you hope to do once you attain that degree? What is your life's mission? What is your life's work once you get that degree?
My mission is to help those that are dealing not only psychologically, but emotionally, to be able to counsel them in the right dimension, because there's a difference between church and the outside world. So I will combine the both with the psychological aspect as well as with the spiritual aspect. And as I'm doing now, like I mentor a lot of women. So learning psychology has helped me to understand them better.
So now tell the audience that's watching today, and this is really pretty interesting. I got to tell you, what a remarkable turnaround you've accomplished. I know you must be proud of yourself, but let me just tell you, you should be proud of yourself, what you've accomplished. God bless you. Where can people buy your novels? Where can they buy your book?
They're on Zibris.com, Xlibris.com is on Amazon.com, is on Barnes and Noble, is on Google.com. You search the website, it's on there.
So can I tell you a little secret?
Yes.
So when you said that it's available on Xlibris, I was part of that company. I was one of the guys that helped start that company.
Really?
Like 20 years ago out of Philadelphia.
Oh, wow.
And it's grown a lot, right? It's a self-publishing group, right? You're able to go out, make the book available for sale. And it's also available on Amazon and BarnesandNoble.com.
Yes.
That's nice. And the title of the book is The Life and Testimony of Lisa Chaneyfield, Volume 2.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure there's a Volume 1. And what will be the title of your third upcoming novel?
It's going to be called Breaking Cycles.
By the same name, Lisa Chaneyfield.
Yes.
I love it. Well, listen, we're almost out of time, but I want to give you the last word. If what advice would you give to a man or a woman that might have found themselves or find themselves right now in the same prediction, in the same situation, in the same rut that you were in? Can you give some advice to people about how they can better themselves and what you did to get out of that rut?
Well, the first thing I would say is that they don't have to stay where they are. There's always a light at the end of the tunnel. And I would say to look unto Jesus, who is the author and finisher of our faith, because there's nothing impossible for God to do. And if he did it for me, I know without a shadow of a doubt that he can do it for you. And that just believe in yourself, block out all negativity, and just say to myself, I'm going to get up and I'm going to do this for myself, not for other people, but for yourself, and to start loving you.
That's beautiful. I got to tell you, Lisa, and I got to tell you, it sounds to me like for you, again, this is not a business program. This is about authorship, right? This is also not a religious program, but it seems to me, your perspective, it all begins and ends with your God.
Yes.
Right? And no matter what, it begins and ends with your God. And you know what? I want to get this book. I think you sent me a copy of it. I'm going to get it on my to-do list to read. And I'd love to meet you sometime and just shake your hand and express my just pride in what you've tried to do to better yourself. Other people could not have done this. And I think you owe yourself your own little pat in the back and your own little pride for what you did, Miss Chaneyfield. Ladies and gentlemen, the life and testimony of Lisa Chaneyfield, available on Amazon, Xlibris.com, as well as Barnes and Noble. Lisa, it's been a pleasure to work with you. It's been a pleasure to hear your story, and God bless you.
God bless you. To God be the glory. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, take care. I'm going to ask you to mute yourself and leave the video so we can introduce our next guest, Miss Mariah Fredericks. Mariah, welcome to the program.
Hi, what am I? Hi, thanks so much.
So nice to see you. Wow. So, born and raised in New York City, you still live here, and you're the author of several YA novels. Tell us about yourself. What motivated you to write whenever you started, and what motivates you today?
Oh, I always wanted to write from the time I was a very small kid. One of my favorite books was What Do People Do All Day by Richard Scarry. And that question always stayed with me. Like, what do people do all day and why? So yeah, I wrote for many, many years unsuccessfully. And then my husband finally said to me, after I think it was my third book was rejected, he said, why not try writing for young adults? And I did, and the second editor we sent it to took it. So it was a great change to make.
How many novels do you have published?
Let's see, in April, I think my 14th novel.
Wow, that's fantastic. Holy cow. Now, is writing and being an author, is that your day job, or do you do something else?
I'm very fortunate that it's my day job. For many years, I worked for Book of the Month Club as a copywriter, but now I do this full time.
Wow, that's fantastic. Oh my gosh, what a great story. And of the 14 that you've had written and published, any favorites?
I'd say certainly the first adult historical mystery, Jane Prescott, A Death of No Importance, has to be a standout because it was a big shift in my career that many people said was not a good idea. But the book broke through and I stayed with it because I loved that character and I loved the story. So the series success has been really special.
That's wonderful. So in your case, we talked with our friend Lisa Chaneyfield before you. What is your motivation? Like what, how do you do it? Where do you do your writing and what manner, what medium do you use? Do you write? Do you type?
You guys were talking about how to write beautiful cursive. I have the worst hand grip in the world. So I have been typing since I was about 10 years old, and now I use a computer. We're fortunate living in Queens. I have my own study. And I start at about 8 o'clock in the morning, and on a good day, I go all day.
Wow, that's fantastic. And how do you get your motivation? Do you do it from something personal? Is it of nature? Is it of people? I'm trying to get into your mind about how how Mariah Fredericks like stops and says, I'm gonna write about this.
I love stories. I always have, and I really like losing myself in stories. I mean, Stephen King once said that he has insomnia because he stays up. A story will get into his head and he just has it spooling on and on and on. And I'm not Stephen King, but I understand what he's saying about that. Usually story comes to me through a character and a voice and a predicament.
Nice. What's the hardest thing you've ever had to write about?
One of the hardest things that I ever had to write about was because the series is historical. The first book ends with the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory fire. And I had been to, they have the memorial service every year by the Ash Building
Yes.
downtown. So I wanted to capture the horror of it, but because the descendants of those women are still living, I wanted to be very sensitive about how I described what had happened to them. That was a hard thing. I'm currently writing a book about the Lindbergh kidnapping. That's another very difficult subject.
Wow. I just read, I think that the 110th anniversary of that Triangle Shirtwaist fire was just last week.
Yes, yes, it's always around my mother's birthday.
And it
Yeah.
reminds me because the Queen's Chamber is 110 this year. May of 2021 will be 110th anniversary. We were founded in 1911.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah, yeah. And I know a couple folks that are into that whole keeping the Triangle Shirtwaist fire and those survivors, not the survivors, sorry, the descendants of the survivors, up to date on developments and so on. They also credit, sadly, that fire for making all kinds of changes in safety in buildings throughout the United States.
Yeah.
Remarkable. What other things do you like to write about, Mariah?
When I wrote about young people, people say, well, why write about teenagers? And I like to write about people who are very passionate about moving forward, but don't have total control of their lives. That there are obstacles that they face, that they have to come to terms with lack of power. I love writing about the history of New York City. It's just a total joy. Both my parents are dead, so the chance to sort of go back in the past is it's very healing.
Are any of the things you write about in any way like autobiographical in the sense of their experiences that you had that you can share?
My young adult stuff certainly was. One of my novels was about Crunch Time, was about 4 kids who take the SATs, and it's told from all 4 points of view, and one of them cheats, and you have to guess which one of them cheated, and that actually did happen. in my year in high school. Somebody cheated on the SATs.
Holy cow. Do
Yeah.
you have any children of your own?
Yes, I have a 14-year-old son.
So I have a 14-year-old son and a
Oh.
18-year-old daughter. And when you mentioned that she's a senior in high school and the trials and tribulations about choosing a college, which might sound trite to some, but it's an effort. It's a journey for these kids as we lived it through, COVID, right? You said your 14-year-old is a son
Yes,
and he's a freshman in high school.
he is.
So as I told my freshman in high school, since the dawn of time, since the Stone Age, have you or your sister, who's a senior in high school, ever experienced a freshman year or a senior year ever like this? Ever? Like not being together. My daughter had no junior prom last year. There won't be a large, formal prom for senior year. It's really sad and devastating, but it's also, the whole spirit of we're all in this together.
Mhm.
Doesn't make a kid feel much better, right? But I try to, inure to them that it's like, listen, this is happening everywhere, right? So I don't know. I'd love to give you an idea for a novel, but I think something along the lines of either being a teenager or just, being together with your family, if you were sequestered together, quarantined together, might make a great storyline.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it'll be interesting to see what the COVID novel situation is, what stories people want to tell about this year.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what happens as we exit this thing and some of the storylines I think that can be written.
Yeah, yeah.
So boy, 14 novels, that's incredible. And so you have them available obviously for sale on all the big websites, the Amazons and barnesandnoble.com. When you say you live in New York City, I'm assuming you live in Manhattan?
No, grew up in Manhattan, moved to Brooklyn, now Jackson Heights, Queens.
Oh, terrific.
Yeah.
And so the reason I asked that question is, are your books available for sale in person at any of our Queens bookstores?
Yes, Astoria Bookshop, great store. I'm not sure if I'm at Q and Willow. Book Culture in Long Island City. Both those stores.
That's great. The Astoria one I hear about, I always ask that question because this is not really a business segment, right, for the Queens Chamber of Commerce, but I always try to encourage people to buy local if they can and shop local. And so that's really kind of important to me, as it is to the folks that listen and want to follow some of these novels and so on. If you've been doing this for a long time and you've been writing for a while and obviously very successful, 14 novels. If you could give any advice to like your 18-year-old self, number one, and then an 18-year-old person today about becoming an author for your career, for their career, what would you offer in each of those categories? You as the 18-year-old self, and maybe it's the same for an 18-year-old today.
I would say be prepared to write a book a year. Finish your book. Don't be afraid to send it out into the world, because I see a lot of people get stuck on, they have a novel, but they can't quite finish it and they can't quite send it out because they're afraid of rejection. But all your hopes and dreams for that book won't come true unless you risk the rejection. I would say don't be afraid to make changes when you have to. Don't get stuck in one idea of yourself as a writer and what you can do. And enjoy it. Just always enjoy it, because it's not like you're going to make a huge amount of money. So you better enjoy it.
Yeah, it clearly sounds like a calling for you and for everybody else I talk to on this segment, that no one's doing it to become a millionaire. They're just not, right? They're just doing it for the love and for the expression and so on. Let me ask you this too. Oh, that thought escaped me. I'm sorry. I was going to ask you something else. Oh, I know what it was. Any of your, because 14's a lot. Good heavens, it's great. Have any of your, I'm so impressed by that. Have any of your 14 either ever been considered for, or have you ever thought about them to be made into a movie or a television series?
Well, that's the dream, isn't it? I know that the Jane Prescott series is out with a scout. But so far, no luck.
Interesting. Wow.
Hmm.
Wow. We're almost out of time here, and Mariah, I really want to thank you so much for your insight today and sharing this with us, your novels and your heart and your home, frankly, because I can see the all the books on the bookshelf. Very appropriate. Any last advice or counsel to anybody who you think, anybody that might be thinking about becoming an author, whether it's full-time, part-time, an aspiration, any parting thoughts for them?
This is an exciting time, I think, in publishing, where voices that haven't had a chance to be heard are coming to the forefront. People are recognizing that we need fresh voices, new perspectives. So if you think like, oh, publishing doesn't seem to look like me, or books don't seem to be written by people like me, ignore that. Really go forth and, put yourself out there, because we're all hungry for new stories and new voices.
That's great. It's a wonderful way to end the segment. Ladies and gentlemen, Mariah Fredericks, accomplished author, 14 novels. Lisa Chaneyfield. Lisa, can we see you real quick before we go? I want to thank both of our authors today for coming here today. I want to thank all of our viewers. If anybody wants to view the books or buy the books, they can click through our website and get them. Lisa Chaneyfield, accomplished author. Mariah Fredericks, accomplished author. Thank you so much. Much continued success. And thanks for being part of our program today.
Thank you.
Thank you, ladies. Take care and be well.
You too.
Thank you.
Bye.